Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 76 of the Game Changers. Can you believe that? 76 episode already. I'm Carla, your host for tonight, featuring Evan Sather, aka Barely Fantasy. His extensive expertise will provide invaluable insights into our discussion, where we will explore thought provoking topics to ensure one of a kind experience for our audience. A special thank you for the DSA team for their support in creating this platform for meaningful conversations with community leaders and innovators like you. Join me as I delve into the stories and insight of my guests, especially in the realm of fantasy football. The Game Changers foster a unique community, and I'm honored to share this journey with all of you tonight. Just a head up, the Game Changers will be taking May and June, the month of May and June off. So make sure to soak up with some wisdom tonight and these couple weeks before our short break. Who is Evan Sather, or known as Burley Fantasy? He is a passionate Chicago Bears fan and dedicated fantasy football strategist who has been competing in dynasty and redraft leagues for nearly a decade. As a writer, video creator, and broadcaster, Evan brings high energy analysis to the fantasy football community, breaking down player performances, trade strategies, waiver wire steals, and everything in between. Through his content on YouTube and Instagram, Evan delivers sharp insights, helping fantasy managers make winning decisions. Whether it's bite sized breakdowns or deep dive discussions on fantasy football tactics, he brings an entertaining yet informative approach to the game. Though currently an independent creator, Evan got his start as a regular contributor on a DFS live stream, offering expert player analysis for DraftKings lineups. Now, as Barely Fantasy, he is craving out his own lane, providing knowledge and humor that fantasy football fans won't want to miss. Evan, thank you so much for coming tonight to the show. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's so good to finally get to talk to you face to face like this.
I know, right? We've been like texting back and forth for almost like 2 months. Get into the show. I'm so excited to have you on the show tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has been going on for that long because there was a lot I could bring up on this show, but I think we'd be going for 6 hours if you said yes to everything. So, I figure people want to go to bed at some point.
I just love that we form a really great friendship, from social media and now on the show. And I cannot wait to like talk to you and ask you about your future endeavors. I know that you have a lot coming up. And so let's start with the new thing that coming up for you. I know that you're super excited about it and you shared it all over social media. So what
I
can you
did.
tell me about it?
So, as of yesterday, Wednesday, April 15th, I am the newest regular contributor for Fantasy Now Plus. I am the new guy on the team.
Whoop, whoop.
So,
That's awesome
uh,
news.
yeah, so it's early, so I've yet to get into anything yet under this new company, but it's a good, passionate team that's quickly growing, really good guys behind it, and I'm hoping to do really uh, positive things with the Dynasty DFS, as well as helping make some more short form content, which I specialize in for my Barely Fantasy YouTube channel. So I'm more than happy to get on this team. It's been a short while since I was last on a fantasy football team, and I think this is a really good group of guys. I'm really excited to get started.
That's amazing. When I heard the news, I was so excited for you. I'm really like a big congratulations is coming, and I know everybody is feeling the same and congratulating you, Evan. That's really great news. So let's talk a little bit fantasy football strategy and insights. What's the biggest mistake fantasy players make when drafting their team?
Ooh. There's a few of them that I don't like to say they're mistakes per se. Like I usually try to put people away from drafting by ADP. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily a bad thing to just follow ADP if you're new to the game, you don't really know what you're doing. That's fine. You're not going to kill your team by just going ADP. But, once you get the experience and like where value is, where value isn't, that's when you start to get past that ADP barrier. But I would also say like the real first mistake that a lot of people make is not treating the season like it's brand new and putting too much on the previous season. So, for
yeah,
example, a guy gets injured last year. We had a lot of wide receivers get injured last year. And when somebody gets injured on the level of like Christian McCaffrey, despite the fact that now he's getting older, it's going to be different. But his past injuries, people were like, oh, he burned me because he got injured. I'm never drafting him again. But
right.
that's not necessarily something you want to avoid just because a guy got hurt. Their ADP might change as we're all expecting CMC to go down this year now that he's getting up there in age, and having Achilles tendonitis in both legs is a pain in the butt. I would know. I've had Achilles tendonitis before in one leg. It's not fun, but um,
Yes,
that's not a reason to avoid a guy where they're going, whether it's back of the first round, beginning of the second round, wherever your league is set up.
agree. I mean, being an athlete, you know that you know, we're meant to have injuries, but that doesn't mean that we cannot recover from it and come back like better and stronger. And that's really a huge mistake that some people do, and they don't realize that what happened last time, maybe it's not going to happen this time. I agree with you. I love that that you spoke about this, Evan. Thank you. So, what's the most underrated skill that separates great fantasy managers from average ones, in your opinion?
Watching NFL football games and understanding how players are used. And I know that's kind of vague because it's much more complex than the way that I just worded it.
Yes.
So if you're following your favorite team like me with the Chicago Bears, for example, I've seen just about all 17 games this season, with exceptions on certain Sundays when I'm out of town, but I at least keep up with it on my phone or radio or whatever. Um, but you get the general sense of how the team is set up with the coaching or lack thereof in Matt Eberflus's case, and
Mhm.
understand how the talent is utilized so that you best understand where and why a certain player goes where they go in ADP, why they might be a wide receiver two that you treat in your lineups, and so on and so forth. Um, that takes a lot more effort than I think a lot of casual fantasy football players want to do, where there's nothing wrong with that. If you just want to play from August to December with your friends and just be done with it until next August, totally fine. But
Yeah,
I'm just saying that's just what separates the that's just what separates the champions from the runners up.
that's good. So, in your opinion, Evan, and especially that we're coming right now to like getting your teams together and everything, it's gonna be like setting up with your teams and stuff like that. When it comes to trading, what is the right time to trade away an underperforming star?
Right time is relative to your league. Um, if you get an amazing offer on the table for somebody who thinks that this underperforming player is going to bounce back and they want to buy low on him,
Yeah,
that's always the right time. So trading is one of these complex topics I could talk about for hours because there's really no universal way of trading correctly. It's always going to be different for every league, and it's always going to be different based off of everybody's different needs. So if somebody just wants to spend up on Stefan Diggs, for example, just because they believe in an older player that's an aging asset that it doesn't have much longer to go until they're worthless, and wants to give you somebody unbelievable with a high upside like a Jamar Chase. I don't know why they would do that. I'm just have come up with an example here, but I'm taking Chase all day long, baby.
Yeah.
As ridiculous as that example was.
I'm good with that. So, what's the biggest trap that fantasy players fall into?
And you're really hitting me with these very, very vague, generalized questions here. Ooh, I could go in a lot of directions with that.
I'm fine
Um,
with that.
uh, biggest trap I think would be the one player that's sitting on waiver wire that has a big week. They score one touchdown, they score two touchdowns, and they get like double digit fantasy points of 15 or more. And then people don't recognize that this is a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 in an offense that only got those opportunities because of game script, and they stepped in after they pulled the starters because it was a blowout game, and people get thinking, oh, look at these fantasy points, I must add this person right now. But you got to understand their role before you go into it, because they're just going to come right back down the following week if assuming the starters in front of them aren't hurt. But if
Yes.
you already have that player on your roster, great time to trade. Coming back to that previous question, Carla.
Yeah. Yes. How do you feel about stacking players from the same team, Evan? And I know that a lot of people do that mistake, but how do you feel about it?
Okay, so mistake is relative. Stacking in redraft formats is not always a bad thing. And
Okay.
I actually did that for 2 of my redraft teams this year, and I totally did not mean to do it. I just had a
Really?
lot of these players fall my way. Players from the Detroit Lions in one league and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in another. I just happened to get the Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. I think I also got Rashad White in that same stack, and I mean, Rashad White didn't work out so well, but Baker and Evans is a really good combo to have. Lions, I happen to get both Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta, which is a lot of Lions to have on one team. But the
I'm
Ben
I'm
Johnson offense is so good, you know, that's not a bad thing if the offense is highly powerful enough. And this was a 15-2 team that did really well this year. So, I mean, yeah, Laporta struggled a bit because he was taking a backseat to some wide receivers that were finally getting more targets. But that's not a stack you're going to complain about. Now, if we're talking about a Cleveland Brown stack, I'm just going to wonder if you're okay.
So, Sniper Mel have a question for you. How much of the bye weeks goes into your picks?
Well, Sniper Mel's a Packers fan, but I guess I'll be nice and answer the question.
We
Um,
love Sniper Mel.
so I too have also made the same mistake of drafting too many players on the same bye weeks.
Yes.
That's something that you might say whoopsie after your draft is over, but the one thing I like people to remember that other folks have said before in the fantasy community, you don't win your redraft league at the draft. So it's okay if you make that mistake, because you can always come back later and correct it. Maybe you can make an early trade before week 1. If it's a later, if there's bench players with the same bye week and they're not that valuable according to rankings that you're following, you might be able to just drop them for somebody else if it's not a bad thing, if it's a shallow league. So yeah, bye weeks definitely matter, because you do not want to be caught early on with like a week 5 or 6 bye and have to scramble to figure out who you're starting that week. But later buys, if you get a lot of players that are like week 12, 13, 14 buys, you can sit for a while and be like, yeah, I'll deal with it later in the season. It's fine.
Oh, wow. That's good. So, talking a little bit now about player analysis and predictions. Which current NFL player has surprised you the most this season?
Again, with the vague questions, there are actually quite a few of them that actually stepped up. Cedric Tillman is the one wide receiver that comes to mind that stepped up in an offense that's really bad.
Yeah.
So I released a YouTube short several months ago. Carla, do you remember Travis Fulgham when he played 5 years ago for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I wasn't a fan of football 5 years ago, but you tell me
Hmm.
about him.
Yeah. Okay. So, Travis Fulgham was a top 5 wide receiver for the first several weeks of the season when um, Carson Wentz needed more warm bodies to throw the football to, and Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson were not able to stay healthy. Fulgham
Okay.
was able to step up for a while. He got hurt around the bye week of the Eagles that year, And there were some weeks where he was starting to struggle to get targets until the team was all of a sudden like, nah, we're good. He bounced around on the practice squad for the Eagles the following season, went to the Packers practice squad, got released from there. And then he started playing for the CFL, if I'm not mistaken, the Canadian Football League. And I think he's been released from there a couple of years ago. And he just flat out disappeared in the NFL. I'm thinking Cedric Tillman is heading down a similar path, but I've been wrong about certain players before, which I can get into later, but I'm thinking that's going to be a guy to really sell high on Cedric Tillman because I don't think he's going to get a lot of the same volume next season.
Wow, that's insane. I can't believe that. That's really like a crazy performance for him. So talking about, performances and, like football history, fantasy football history, which player has burned you the most in fantasy football history?
The most. So we're talking just one player cumulatively throughout their career.
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay. That's a curveball you just threw at me right there.
Listen, you're gonna hear a lot of them now.
Yeah. I better watch out. I better cover up. I don't want to get pegged by a curveball here. So I don't like to look at players in fantasy football as if, oh, they burn me, I got to avoid them, or I got to be more careful with them. Like my teams, especially with redraft, never really look the same every single year. Like there will be guys that fall my way, don't fall my way. Like I play in a lot of leagues with, a lot of Chicago people who are also Bears fans. So getting Bears players on my team is never easy. I mean, I can't even tell you the last Bears player I got on any of my redraft teams. I'm lucky I got DeAndre Swift on one of my dynasty teams, which is, going to be a shorter term asset for the future, but that's a different story. Yeah, I don't really know how else to answer that. I just don't look at it that way. I guess I just have a more different, not so much, no, not laissez-faire, but I'm a lot more laid back with fantasy football because people stress and panic about it so much. But I've just learned over the years, I mean, if you start 1-5, that's not the end of the world. You've got time to catch up. You might make one good trade that helps you get the next 4 wins. There's so many variables that go into the game. I've just learned, this is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be something you're willing to just flip your desk over and say, fuck this, I quit after week 1.
I know, but like, let's say you have Amon-Ra in your team, and that week he's playing and he's getting you, I don't know, 10 plus points. But next week, and this is like a really like, you're gonna win. You need to win that week, and you put him into your team to win, and then he doesn't get you any of the points. So you're in a way that, okay, he got me 10 points here, and now he got me 0 points. So did he burn you at that point? Do you think that a burned game for you when they don't collect you points and you don't like perform better in some way, shape, or form?
That's the risk of the game we play, baby. Some weeks just do be like that. There'll be some crazy thing that happens where they hurt their ankle in the first drive and then don't come back until the fourth quarter, if they come back at all. That's the game we play. I mean, that's what happens. But if we're talking about like talent on the level of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who you're going to grab in like the late first, early second, that's probably going to change this year. I don't like to be insulting about it when I say draft better, but you need a team to win. If you're depending on one guy to be your anchor, you're probably going to be in big trouble, especially when that player you consider an anchor has a bye week. Then what are you going to do?
But sometimes it happens. Like you can have a really great week with that player, and sometimes that player doesn't score you anything. So it can happen. It can. At the end, it's a game. It's sports. You never know. We cannot predict you cannot predict the prediction for the future. Oh my God! Like I have a tongue twister right now. Anyway, Evan, who's your must-have player in 2025 fantasy draft, and who is the player that you are avoiding at all costs this season?
You're forcing me to think outside of the way I usually think about this stuff. So I'm sorry for these slow answers. I might have to think about that
You're
one.
fine. You're fine. You keep time. You have time.
Because there's so many players I could say you must have, like everybody in the first or second
Okay.
round. I mean, I could go on and on. You got to have Jamar Chase. You got to have Saquon Barkley. But I mean, you're not going to be able to get everybody, right? So you just have to grab the best available and hope that your combination of players beats your opponent's combination of players, as that's how we typically play fantasy football.
Yeah.
But if I guess it's pretty easy to also say, who am I avoiding at all costs? Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. Yeah, there's plenty of those guys that we're going to be avoiding.
This has been a year for me. I did not enjoy Aaron Rodgers for some reason. It's just the person.
Did anybody
I didn't enjoy as a person?
Did anybody enjoy Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know. Maybe we should read what others are saying about
Chat. Did you enjoy Aaron Rodgers this time on the Jets? Leave a comment. Let us know.
Yes, leave a comment.
I think I already know the answer.
Let's talk a little bit about trades, waivers, and team building. What's your philosophy on trading in fantasy football?
Well, rule number 1, don't be a dick about it.
Yes.
Rule number 2, reach out to the person you want to trade with to negotiate a deal. It's counterproductive and almost a guarantee no if you're just going to send out a blind trade through the app that you play fantasy football in. Like if you just put together a trade, I don't know, it could be Jamar Chase for Amon-Ra St. Brown for some reason, and then there's just a silent rejection, and then that's just the end of it. Like, that's not really enough, because you have to talk to your person in order to get a trade done. And as much as I would love to agree about the Jordan Mason part, I need to see more evidence that they're not going to use Aaron Jones as much. But I do love the upside he's got sitting behind Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
They're saying that Aaron is going to the Vikings. Did you hear that too?
I've seen back and forth rumors about that, saying Vikings are not pursuing Aaron Rodgers at this time. Vikings are open to Aaron Rodgers at this time, and I don't know. I would love to see him complete the Brett Favre cycle, but they love JJ McCarthy. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. I'd like to see. I'd still like to see the cycle be completed for the laughs.
Yeah. So, what did you think about Aaron Rodgers and the whole team when they kick their what's the coach? Their coach. What did you think about it?
Are we talking Robert Saleh?
Yes.
So Robert Saleh is a guy that I always felt like was a better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach. I didn't think he was a very good head coach at all, but his defenses speak for themselves. So being a defensive coordinator, I think he went back to the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken.
He was just, I think, the coach, the 49er coach, he got him so he can ask him questions, but I don't think he is with the team yet. I heard rumors that he is helping them, but not in the team yet.
I am reading he is the Niners defensive coordinator.
He is right now. They gave him the job.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's very good for them. But yeah, no, I always liked him better as a DC than a head coach. I knew that defense was going to suffer on the Jets after he was gone, but in classic Aaron Rodgers fashion, he had a lot more influence on the general management decisions than ever. Get rid of Mike Williams, give me Devontae Adams, give me Lazard, Cobb, give me all my guys. And the offense was just a horrible mess, and Rodgers looked terrible out there too, like a shell of his former self. And yeah, I feel sorry for Jets fans having to watch that, and I'm glad it's over. I'm glad they got Justin Fields, who can at least be athletic with the football, because I don't have a lot of confidence in their offensive line, and the poor guy's probably gonna have to run for his life again.
Yeah, I didn't think kicking Salah was the best thing, and it's gonna make the team better. But again, I believe he is in a better place right now, which is really, really good for him. We will see what's gonna happen next. Yeah, like I said, I heard the rumors, but I didn't know that he was with them with the 49ers. That's good to know. So what's the best trade you've ever made, Evan? And what's the worst one that still haunts you till now?
I don't have the exact trade in front of me, but there was one a couple of years ago. I think was it 2022 or 2023. It was one of those years. Um,
Yeah.
this was the this was the red hot year that uh Josh Jacobs had in the Raiders, where I thought they were running him into the ground before they let him go in free agency. I had to give him up in order to get some wide receiver and tight end help.
Wow.
And after I did that, it was enough to at least help me win that league. I wish I had that trade in front of me. I could. It would take me a few minutes to pull it up, but I can at least find that while we keep going here.
It's okay. You can do that. Do you remember your worst trade that still haunt you?
I don't really believe I've made any trades that have haunted me, but my equivalent of that in Dynasty is dropping the wrong guys.
Yeah.
So I've dropped guys before they started taking off in production, like Austin Eckler and Chase Edmonds. Like I've made those mistakes before 2020. So those are just gonna happen. You know, you just have to learn from them and keep going.
Yeah.
But the
You're
good news is
still
that I'm not even in that league anymore, so I'm okay.
no. So, how do you handle someone who refuses to participate in or set up lineups?
So that becomes an effort issue in which you have to talk to that person if they're not setting their lineups, and you have to text them, call them, say, hey, this is the second week in a row I've had to remind you to set your lineups. Are you able to find the time to play this game? There's no
Yeah.
shame if you need to step out, but I'd like to find if you need to step away from the game, I'd like to find I need some time to find a replacement if that's okay with you, or if you'd like to keep going. Um, and yeah, I've been in leagues before where guys forget that stuff. And my philosophy as a commissioner is that I don't want to babysit people when it comes to setting their lineups. But
True.
if it becomes a big enough problem where it's like 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row, and so on and so forth, that's when I would have to step in with that question.
Have you ever been accused of unfair play?
I've had trades reversed before because somebody accidentally clicked yes, or it felt too lopsided for a commissioner and they didn't like it. That's not something I necessarily agree with, but it's happened to me before. These are in old Yahoo leagues, which I'm not a part of anymore. I wish I could
Yes.
name you more specifics. It's been so many years, I don't remember who the players were anymore. But I do have the keeper trades that helped me win that championship that one year.
Nice.
Are you interested?
That's really cool. Yes, of course.
So the first one where I had to give up Josh Jacobs, I gave up both Jacobs and Carson Wentz for Kirk Cousins and Pat Fryermuth, which was a move that I had to make because of bye weeks. Like I said earlier, I've made that mistake before where I didn't prepare in time for bye weeks, and I realized, oh shoot, I need a quarterback to start. Or yeah, I think it was Wentz that had that bye week. I think he was still an Eagle at that point. And then the second trade, when I got back Fryermuth, I ended up trading him along with Kareem Hunt and Brandon Cooks. And then I got back T. Higgins, George Kittle, and James Conner. And that was the commissioner of the league. So I'm like, all right, I'll take that. So
That's
thank
really
goodness I
cool.
got those assets in return. That helped me win.
That's amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What's your approach to DFS lineup building?
So for 1 year, I was on an old YouTube live DFS podcast where we were setting lineups in season every week with a
Yeah.
DraftKings classic lineups. That's where I still play primarily as well. So during the NFL season, we were doing that. And then like last year when I was on the show, we were doing that with UFL season as well. So my preferred start is to pick a stack that you really, really like. Maybe it's a good, maybe it's a halfway decent offense going against a really bad defense. So we could say maybe it's the Houston Texans offense who really fell off
Yeah.
this past year. You could build like a Stroud to Nico Collins connection when Collins got back and being healthy. Maybe they're playing against the Cleveland Browns, who were a really bad defense last year. That's a stack that you want to start with, and then within the budget constraint that you have, pick as many good value players as you can to fill out the rest of that lineup for whatever is a good price. I like to go off of momentum that a certain player has. So if there's like a running back that costs like $9,000 in DraftKings, I'm probably not going to be as uh, envy eager to spend up that much for to start a running back if they've only been scoring like maybe 8 fantasy points per game over the last couple of weeks because the offensive line is struggling, for example. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the thing is too with setting a classic lineup in DraftKings, you don't have to spend the whole budget either. You can just leave $200 on the table, $300 on the table, and that's just okay too, as long as you get the guys in there that you want.
That's cool. So let me ask you this question. Is DFS purely a game of skill or luck?
Do I have to pick one or the other?
You tell me.
Oh, all right. Well, in that case, it's both.
How?
So the skill part, at least in my opinion, is where it comes into like what I was just talking about with the last question. Just being able to make good judgments on picking the right players to put in your lineup based off of their matchups, their how well they're doing this year in this and their respective offenses. Some people like to care about weather. I don't care as much about weather, especially if it's a running back and they're just going to run the football anyway, and so on and so forth. And then just picking the right defense that doesn't go against your offensive players, which I don't usually like to stack the two. It's not necessarily a
Yeah.
death sentence, but I also don't like dueling running backs from the same game either because you don't have a lot of games where both running backs score a lot of points. So I usually try to avoid those as well. And then the luck factor that comes into it is just hoping that everybody does their part, right? Just like regular
Mhm.
fantasy football. We don't have any control over the outcome over our players, just the ones we play.
Well, that's really good. You tell me your own opinion here. Should casual fantasy player dabble in DFS? If yes, why? If no, why?
So once you start getting into DFS, I say this like I would say to anybody that wants to start playing games at a casino for the first time. Do you have spare income, disposable income that you're willing to lose? If the answer is yes, then I would say, yeah, go right ahead, make a deposit on whatever platform you want, give it a try, and see what happens. DraftKings is the only platform I know of that will have free contests that aren't just for nothing. They
Yeah.
might be sponsored contests by DoorDash or Grubhub or 1-800 Flowers or whoever is the sponsor for any given week, and you get into a classic lineup pool with thousands of people with an unlimited entry. Well, actually one entry limit, but with unlimited people who can enter it. And your chances of winning those are not very high because you're going up against sometimes as many as like 77,000 people. But it's at least a way to get some experience into lineup building.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk a little bit about fantasy football community and content creation. How did you get started in content creation, Evan?
So this ties in with what we were just talking about with that YouTube live stream show. I
Yes.
was offered to join that crew in August of 2023. I said yes to it because I never done it before, and and once upon a time I started Barely Fantasy, not really knowing what I wanted it to be. Did I just want to be a Bears content creator? Do I want to just be a fantasy football content creator? I've pretty much tried to do both. I don't have any Bears specific long videos up yet, which I have a bunch of unfinished scripts. But anyway, so I got going with that after I left that YouTube live stream DFS show where I won't get into the finer details of why I left, but that motivated me to start doing other things that I wanted to do. Because you know that particular crew wanted to get more into like daily fantasy basketball, and these are things that I don't particularly care about too. So it's awkward for me to sit there quiet, not knowing what the hell to say when we're talking NBA basketball, because I haven't given a shit about NBA basketball in like 15 years. So
For a long
yeah,
time, yeah.
that's not something that I'm comfortable just sitting quietly while they're talking about it. So that it's just easier for me to be in a format that I feel like I fit better with my own stuff. And
Yeah.
I also needed a portfolio that at least shows what I can offer for the fantasy football world. And that's what, eight, how many months later? It's been since Labor Day since I started uploading content. So just in time for week 1. And as of yesterday, I'm a member of Fantasy Now Plus. So I think that portfolio has at least spoken for itself.
I'm so happy for you about that. So, what's the biggest misconception people have about fantasy content creators?
Misconception. That's another good curveball question. That can go in a lot of different ways. But what
It's up to you.
what I have seen before from the snarkier crowd is that, oh,
Yes.
they don't know what they're talking about. Oh, they haven't been at the Senior Bowl to look at the talent themselves. Oh, they're posting news and pretending like it's their own, which, I mean, these are just vague generalizations that I've seen before in comments, which I try to filter them out because I don't like it. But
Try to
everybody
avoid.
brings something different to the table in the fantasy football community. Even if you've
Agree.
never played football before, even if you've never worked for ESPN before, everybody's got something to offer.
I agree 100%. I never played fantasy football, and I'm talking fantasy football. It doesn't mean that I don't know what fantasy football is, but I'm learning. So I'm learning from great people like you guys. Do you ever feel pressure to be right in your prediction?
Oh, all the time. Nobody wants to get anything wrong, but it's kind of also going to be inevitable because there are things that we can never ever predict, like somebody getting injured.
Agree. Yeah.
Last year, I picked Isaac Garendo to be my league winner. Then he got hurt with a hamstring injury. So there
That's
goes that.
crazy. Yeah,
I,
this
I
goes
mean,
in.
people love rookies as high upside potential league winners, and I didn't know it was going to be Garendo until later in the season. But we lost Christian McCaffrey, we lost Jordan Mason. Garendo was inevitable. So yeah, it was. I mean, if you were lucky enough to get Bucky Irving, congratulations. But
Yeah,
I definitely thought Garendo was going to be the sneaky winner.
that's insane. Have you ever received a crazy fan interaction or comment? And how did you deal with it?
Not so much crazy, but I mean, I do get mean comments on YouTube from time to time because that's YouTube and they're gonna do that. If you can't handle
Right.
mean comments on YouTube, then you're never gonna be happy. It's just a part of what you have to deal with. But at the same time, YouTube will at least give you some control over the type of comments that get posted that may get held in a queue just in case it goes like against YouTube community guidelines, or just maybe it's something that you don't necessarily want to allow, like like if somebody calls me a moron, it's like, all right, well, it's not the worst thing
It's
somebody's called
personal.
me. It's not the worst thing anybody's ever fucking called me, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lose any sleep about it. But at the same time, I'm just gonna
Agree.
click that delete button because it's like, yeah, we're not going there. If that's the way you're gonna talk, I got better things to do, man. I don't need the engagement that badly.
I agree 100%. I mean, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. Just don't say it. And
Well,
we're seeing
yeah,
a lot of trolls lately. Yeah.
there was another side of that too, where maybe somebody doesn't necessarily write it in the nicest way, but I made one mistake in a Tyler Conklin short where I was talking. He just joined the Los Angeles Chargers, in case you didn't hear, and
Yeah.
I mistakenly had listed. They've had both Hunter Henry and Hayden Hurst as tight ends on their team. Uh, I was talking about the potential target share that Tyler Conklin could get. And in Justin Herbert's rookie year, he peppered Hunter Henry very well. But I accidentally said Hayden Hurst, who wasn't even on the team in 2020. So, yeah, when you're a one-man show, things like that slip by. And somebody called me out in the comments. And, I could have gotten mad or defensive about it. But I was like, you know what? Hey, you got me. Great catch. I will do better in the future. I meant to
Yeah.
say Hunter Henry. Thank you for pointing that out.
We're human beings. We make mistakes, and it's fine. That's really amazing. So let's go a little personal right now. What can you tell me about Evan, the person, the personality, and everything that we need to know about Evan that people don't know about and you want to share with us tonight?
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready to open the book that much. Everything you need to know?
It's up to you. Whatever you want to share, it's up to you. We're all ears.
Yeah. So in my spare time outside of being a fantasy football guy, I have a full-time 40-hour week job just like everybody else, you know.
Nice.
I got an 8 to 4 that I do every day, and um well, not every day, 5 days a week, but and outside of that, I don't have time for video games anymore now that we're getting older and we have other priorities, right? You know. But there, you know, I try to keep up with the single player games when I have that spare time. But outside of that, I'm making the fantasy football content. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter as well. I train 3 days. I try to train more than 3 days a week, but 3 days is usually all I can get in just to try and stay healthy and all that. And
Nice.
I used to be a marathon runner for much of my life. I'm 39 years old. I was a competitive distance runner from about age 14 until age 34. That was when I quit. Um, I just,
Um,
yeah, I just fell out of love with the grind of marathon running, and I just felt like it was just time for something new. It's just one of those. It's hard to put into words exactly why I felt the need to move on, but it was just one of those things that you know it when you feel it,
I
and
agree.
I just knew that was my time. I enjoyed it while I did, but it was just time to find something different that I like better. And Brazilian Jiu Jitsu happened to come along just a few years later because I knew, you know, life was getting a little hard around the COVID time and trying to figure out who the hell am I and what am I going to do with my life now that restrictions are being lifted and we got vaccines and mask restrictions are starting to be lifted. And it's like, all right, now that I can go out and not have to worry about dying from this awful virus, now what can I do? And that's where the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu part came in, where I had dabbled with it a little bit my senior year of college in 2008. I had a track and field teammate that taught a bunch of us track and field guys. You know, I did it for about a month and a half informally with him. And then I just didn't touch it at all because I graduated and I got busy with grad school and then my career and got busy with running again. So didn't touch jujitsu for 15 years. And then I came back to it 2 years ago.
It's crazy. You send me videos. It's just amazing sports. I just love it. I really love it. So with the jiu-jitsu, any similarities between strategy in jiu-jitsu and fantasy football, Evan, you can share with us?
That's they don't really intersect all that much. Um,
Yeah.
I suppose if I really had to pick one, it could be it could be about learning learning to be patient. Excuse me, learning to be patient under pressure.
Yes.
Because when you're doing a grappling martial art like a jujitsu and you're new to it, you're going to be stuck in a lot of really uncomfortable positions, similar to wrestling.
I agree.
So you know, it's not to say, you know, get used to losing as if that's necessarily a bad thing. You got to learn how to play good defense before you can get into a good offense, and that takes patience. And that's what I try to preach as well with fantasy football. Patience is your friend.
100%. I
And there
agree.
are a lot of people that will easily panic over players getting hurt or players not performing as well. And, you know, you can't save everybody, but I try.
You can only try. I agree with you. So, if you had to compare fantasy football strategy to the sports technique, what would it be?
Fantasy sports to a specific technique.
Jiu-jitsu, like, yeah, the your jiu-jitsu technique. What would it be if you want to compare strategies?
Hmm, that's another. That's hard to say. I don't know if I can really come up with a plausible answer for that one.
Sorry,
Are
me
you
and
really?
my curveballs.
Yeah, God, I think I've been hit at bat at least 5 times already. Good Lord. I'm surprised the skip hasn't pulled you yet.
You're gonna do that the whole
Yeah,
time.
gosh. Um, Uh,
I mean, you don't have to answer
I don't know if it's
that.
I don't know if it's necessarily one technique. I kind of
Yeah.
look at it like I kind of look at it like my experience with competing in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament for the first time, which I did 2 weeks ago. Um,
Yes.
your matches are 5 minutes each, and a strategy I like to go into it. Obviously, you want to win when you can, but
Definitely.
if I'm against an opponent that I know has certain advantages over me, I like to milk the clock a bit and make them get out of make them get out of my closed guard game. I don't know if anybody listening does jujitsu. If you do, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I like to milk the clock a bit, take my time and not worry about how much time is on the clock before I can attempt a submission and see if I can get it. And if I can't get it, uh, that's okay because most tournaments are by points. But if it's a submission only tournament, well, maybe you can win by decision, but attempting a submission is at least important. So
Great.
that's at least good enough for a win in that particular match, and that's probably the closest I could say is how I like to approach fantasy football as well, where you know that comes all back to the patient angle. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I hope y'all are still listening to us at this point. I hope you all are enjoying this so far.
I think everybody is enjoying
I like
their
that.
time. I'm sure they like it. I'm sorry. So if fantasy football didn't exist, what sport would you play fantasy for?
Fantasy baseball technically came before fantasy football if we're going back to the history of fantasy sports. So it would
Yeah.
probably be fantasy baseball, but I think that also depends on which platform support it the best too, because uh I like to think Sleeper is they're not paying me to say this, but I love their platform a lot and I wish they were
I've
paying me
heard
to say
that.
that, but they're not. But they
I
don't
wish that
but
too.
but yeah, they don't do fantasy baseball right now. I don't know if that'll change in the future, but that's what I mean is that it would depend on which platforms are going to support fantasy baseball because I don't know of a good dynasty baseball platform either. It's
Yeah,
fantasy baseball is a lot of work too. You can't treat it like a week to week thing. It's a very much a daily thing.
agreed. So if you could create a fantasy league rule that doesn't exist, what would it be and why?
I think that's now 6 times I've been pelted at the plate. Good Lord, Carla, you're killing me here.
Sorry.
um, yeah, no, I'm sorry, I have to tease you.
I have
Gosh,
good questions. That's the only thing I can say.
no, that's the thing. These are good questions. It's just I'm just never ready for such good questions too. um,
Thank you, Evan.
I don't know if I can think of a rule that doesn't already exist in leagues, but uh, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I even follow this rule perfectly. Just don't be a dick.
No.
I think
Which
most
makes
people are pretty
sense.
good about that.
Yeah. Not many people are so respectful sometimes in the play. I've heard that a lot, especially to women. How you feel about that?
Ooh, that's another topic that I'm probably not the most qualified to speak on, being that I am a man. But yeah, fantasy sports and just sports websites in general,
Yeah.
they're not the most inclusive with women. You could probably speak on this better than I can, Carla. But I mean, if you want to know how women are treated in the state of sports, go on Facebook to any ESPN post about the WNBA and look at the comments and try not to barf when
Mhm.
you read them because they are always disrespectful to WNBA players. And I think that makes me sick because, um, we've got a team right here in Chicago, the Sky, the 2021 champions. And that's fantastic for the city that does not get enough publicity. It's another professional team that won a championship in this decade. So I
We
don't. I
had
mean,
this
I like it.
one.
What's that?
UConn basketball. UConn just won.
Yes. Yeah, I keep
Women.
forgetting you're in Connecticut. You got UConn right there. UConn's women's
Yes.
team, like I can't remember a year when they didn't win
Right. I think this is their 14th win.
in a row.
Um, I don't believe it in a row, but this is their 14th win.
Wow.
It's just amazing. Like, this is amazing. Women's sport in all, it's not being broadcasted as it should be. Even their pay is always less than men. Even us as women, and we have the same. We go to the same college. We have the same, credibilities and everything. We don't have the same pay as men, which is really crazy.
Yeah,
And
I saw some salaries for some of the WNBA players on Blue Sky recently, and I find it
yeah,
so insulting that if they get multi-year contracts, like they're only
yeah,
making 5 figures a year. With how wealthy the NBA is from globalizing the game, they could absolutely be throwing more money at the WNBA to get these players at least 6-figure incomes. I don't
yeah.
understand why there's any player in the WNBA making 5.
Yeah, I don't get it either. This is crazy. So we always think, like, when I did my dissertation, I was talking about equality between the East and the West, and I was talking a lot about how they make you think that women and men are equal. You hear it, but it's not happening yet. I don't believe it's happening. Even in the state, it's not happening yet. We're not
There are a
equal.
lot of yeah,
We're not.
yeah. There are a
Yeah,
lot of things in life where just because they're said doesn't mean they're true.
I
And
agree.
what we're talking about is most definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's a big topic to talk about, but yeah, I agree with you. It's not there yet. So let's go with some hypothetical like stuff that you might go with in fantasy football. So would fantasy football work if it had a relegation system like soccer leagues?
I think you're going to have to explain that one to me because I am not a soccer fan and I'm not sure what that means.
So you never watched soccer before?
Never seriously. No, I've never seriously watched soccer before.
So let's skip that because I'm a soccer fan. I used to play, not play, like we have in my country, we are European. So soccer is like a big thing in my country. So that's why I wanted to see if you have, like the same system, if regulation with the yellow card, red card, you're out, you're not playing anymore. And it's a lot of regulation. So we can skip that one for
Wow.
now.
I'm sorry,
So
Carla. I'm a
it's
red, white, and blue
it's
blooded
fine.
American, as much as I hate to admit it, but
It's fine. I'm fine with that. Maybe I'll ask it to someone that's maybe loves soccer at some point. So, how do you see fantasy football evolving over the next decade?
I am seeing the rise in best ball.
Yeah,
Best ball is making a huge rise in people that's the thing about best ball is that no matter where you play it, uh it's a way for people to try to win their league at the draft.
I've
Um
heard that a lot.
that's the classic best ball approach where there are some best ball formats that will let you do ads and drops. I haven't played in one of those yet, but I've done some. I did my first best ball tournament on DraftKings last year. I entered it for $1 just so I could try it. And I think I took like 9th out of 12. So some value that I thought I had didn't turn out to be anything worth a crap. So, oh, I guess I'll try again next year.
Justin is gonna teach you about soccer at Fantasy Now Plus.
Yeah,
Just saying,
yeah,
he's gonna teach you that. I love
that's
that,
that's fine.
Justin.
I need to
Maybe
expand
I'll
my
bring
horizons anyway.
maybe I'll bring Justin in and I can ask him that question at some point. I love it.
Yeah, I guess you'll have to get an update from him someday.
In your opinion, should there be an official fantasy football Hall of Fame?
I mean, isn't I was gonna say they should have that at Canton too when they have the expo, right?
Right? We should
I don't I
plan it in their ears right now.
I don't know if anybody from the expo is listening, but that sounds like a good idea.
I do believe they have a Hall of Fame for different stuff, but I don't think there's a fantasy football Hall of Fame yet. So let's figure this out. Maybe, who knows? So, what's the wildest stat change that's ever affected your fantasy team?
Sorry, could you ask that again?
What's the wildest stat change that's ever affected your fantasy team?
In my 9 years of playing, I have been fortunate to never have a stat correction that screwed me over or helped me win. So I have been very, very
Wow,
fortunate with that. Um,
that's really amazing.
but I have been in danger of it before. That never happened.
Yeah,
At the end of 2017, I was sitting in a Yahoo bracket where I was competing to get in the third place tournament.
yeah.
And I was in the first round. I was trying not to get eliminated. I was on the phone with my brother and I was just swearing up a storm because my team was doing so horrible. And it was Mark Wallace of all wide receivers. I think he was playing for the Ravens at the end of his career. He got a catch that made me win by not 4/10, 4/100ths of a point.
Oh,
That's how close that win was to take me to the third place tournament, third place matchup where I ended up taking third that year in this league. And
you
as soon
deserve
as
it.
Wallace came down with that catch, I don't think my loudness came over the speaker to my brother. I think it might have muted a bit, but I was just like, fuck yes!
Oh my
And,
God.
and I ended up winning that match, and Ryan was definitely confused. But yeah, that was the closest win I think I've ever had.
That's crazy. So let me ask you that. Is fantasy football more stressful or fun for you?
Uh I guess that depends on the time of year. um these days
Hmm.
these days it's more fun for me. I can
Yeah,
honestly say these days is more fun for me. I mean, if I have a disappointing finish in my own dynasty league where I take sixth when I'm contending for a championship, yeah, sometimes those playoff runs suck. They're disappointing, but you just gotta deal with what you can't control, and
yeah,
that's the luck factor that comes in and just crushes you. So yeah, you just deal with it as it comes. But I've done this for long enough now where I'm in enough leagues where at least I can say I won my redraft league and I took second in another redraft league. So, there's other stuff to be happy about, right?
true,
So,
true,
it's not the end of the world if you have a disappointing finish.
true. So let's go with some rapid fire questions. Now, a lot of curveballs are coming at you, Evan. Try to catch that. What's the greatest fantasy football player of all time, in your opinion?
Manager or actual NFL player?
Football player, NFL player.
We'll go with Christian McCaffrey as recency bias.
One fantasy football rule you hate.
Uh, Trade vetoes.
Best team name you've ever seen.
Boner soup. That
Biggest
was the
fantasy. Go
I'll
ahead.
get back to you later. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
That was the commissioner of one league I was in. That was his team name.
Really? That's awesome.
It was a wild league.
That's crazy. What's the biggest fantasy football villain?
Define villain.
Bad guy, maybe. I don't know. Maybe
Are we talking
someone
about
that didn't let you win at some point.
are we
We
talking
can
about like
name
an
him.
actual player that underperformed or
Yeah, we can name him a villain
uh
that you
Deshaun
thought he
Watson?
was really good, but he
Yeah, we'll go
took
Deshaun
over.
Watson.
Okay. Underrated strategy most people overlook.
Uh Stacking.
Craziest comeback you've witnessed in fantasy football.
The story that I just told from 2017.
Best advice you would give to a fantasy football newbie.
Uh, Draft the best players you can find and have fun with it.
Awesome. Have fun with it. That's the best thing ever. People lately don't have fun with whatever they do and they go crazy with a lot of stuff. So that's the best advice I ever heard. If you had to draft using only historical NFL players, who would be your first pick, and
Walter
why would you
Payton.
pick them? Why would you pick them?
I'm glad I got that answer off over the second part of that question. Well, because he's sweetness, he's unstoppable, and why wouldn't I want him? I mean, sure, I may be a little biased as a Chicago Bears fan, but I mean, he had well over 10 years worth of high production with the football, so it's kind of hard not to pick somebody like that.
Yeah. In your opinion, Evan, would fantasy football be more fun with live player interactions?
Live interactions with people in your league?
With the football players interactions, like hearing them.
Well, I guess that depends on which players it is, because I know some NFL players don't care about it or like it as much, just because, you know, certain people on social media can get a little too overboard with tweeting at them like, you lost me my league this week, you suck. Yeah, just people are just being idiots about it as if it's the player's fault.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I guess that depends. Like I said, I think that depends on the player. Like, there are certain guys like David Johnson who have been known to be a friend of fantasy that Matthew Berry really, really likes. So
Yeah.
I feel like guys like him would be fun to be with.
I know, right? Like Mike on, right? And listening to them, what they're saying when they're playing. I would love to hear that at some point at one of the games. That would be fun.
Yeah, and that's what the UFL does right now. A lot of guys are mic'd up. A lot of coaches are mic'd up. Referees
Yeah,
are
but
mic'd
we
up.
don't hear them at the games at times. But yeah. So we're coming to almost the end of our journey here, but I have a couple questions to ask. How would the game change if injuries weren't a factor?
If injuries weren't a factor, then you would just start looking at other things that could be a factor, like weather being one of them. Like I said earlier, I don't care that much about weather. I still play my
Yeah.
studs, but people are going to start looking at factors like that. Yeah, that's a good question too, because we're expecting these guys to be superhuman at that point, which is not possible. And football hurts, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I've never suited up in a football uniform before. I've never played football in my youth or high school or anything like that. So, you know, that's the type of pain I haven't ever encountered. I'm kind of glad now that we know what we know about CTE, but you know, that's kind of a, yeah, I'm not really sure what else would go into it if injuries were turned off. I mean, it sounds like we're talking about Madden related stuff now.
Yeah, I know. So being a commissioner at some point, I don't know if you're still a commissioner, but
I am.
you're still a commissioner. So
Yep.
being a commissioner, if fantasy football had an official commissioner, who would it be?
An official commissioner across the board, across all leagues?
Yes, for the NFL fantasy
Oh,
football.
well, as long as it's not Roger Goodell, I'll be happy with that.
Why?
Well, who likes Roger Goodell? No, but I guess that would be a hell of a task, by the way, trying to be a global commissioner over all fantasy football leagues. Like, I'm sure it's up to the millions across the board every single season.
Of course, yeah.
But to pick one guy, as insane as it would be, I mean, it'd probably be a weird answer to nominate myself, but you know, we'll go Matthew Berry.
You can nominate yourself. So, Evan, I really don't want to finish this episode because you are so full of knowledge and a lot of stuff we can go through. But before I end the show, I always ask one more question, one more curveball, if you want to say that.
Don't hurt me.
So, my question is always about that secret that you never shared with anyone before and you want to share it on the Game Changer. Either it's a secret that you never shared, or something happened and you shared it before, but you never spoke of, and you want to share it on the Game Changers, maybe an early age or maybe now. It's up to you, whatever you want to share with us tonight.
Oh my goodness. That's the first time I've ever been asked that question. So I'm not prepared with an answer for this one.
No one is prepared in my show for that question. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Ooh. Sorry, I'm not stalling. I promise. I can't think of.
Take your time. Take your time.
All right. Yeah, we'll just have
Trust me.
we'll have awkward silence for the next few minutes. I'm just glad y'all are still with us. Thank you all for joining too, by the way. Yeah, that's
so people shared like sometimes they stole something and like nobody ever knew about, or they put someone in a locker at a young age, or they were playing with a guitar and they smashed the guitar. There's a lot of stories that, you know, like my guests shared with me. So
I like those answers too. Yeah, that's the thing is I don't really have an exciting one to share, right? I don't want to.
You never spoke of.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes me kind of a square in a way where I can't really think of anything that secret that's that entertaining. But
someone shared that they put someone on fire too. Just letting you know.
They lit someone on fire?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What kind of
so I'm telling you, we have a lot of like secrets on that show. So
what kind of arsonists are you having on this show? My gosh.
I'm telling you, we have amazing, like funny stories at the end. No, they're here always for the end, see?
Yeah. But being that the audience doesn't really know me that well yet, I guess I could share something that not a lot of people know about me anymore, is that I have an artistic side to me as well. You wouldn't know it based on I don't have like supreme graphic design skills with my YouTube channel for Barely Fantasy Shorts and regular videos, but I have had an art background. I minored in it in college. I spent many years playing the guitar. I kind of fell off of that over the years. It was a dream of mine to get in a band someday. But a lot of things changed in my life between, you know, a girlfriend breaking up with me, moving out of the town I was in, moving to the city of Chicago. And now I live in a big high rise in the city of Chicago where I have to share walls with people. So I can't really play an instrument as easily without annoying people. So that's something that I would like to get back into. I think we'll count that as my secret, that I've been thinking about that. And I've never actually told anybody until now. So there you go, Carla. You got it out of me. See?
I love that, Evan. Yes, right?
Hey, I still live in 1993. I will raise the roof until the kids cringe.
I love it. Thank you so much, Evan, for sharing that with us. So before we conclude, Evan, please share how our audience can connect with you on social media.
Absolutely. The best way to find me is on Blue Sky, Barely Fantasy, BEARLY Fantasy. I have a Twitter account too, but I don't like to use it as much because I hate Elon Musk. And my Twitter account is not, it's not taking a back seat to Blue Sky per se. It's strapped to the roof of the car, and if it falls off along the way, so be it. So that's the way I'm treating it. Otherwise, look me up on YouTube on Barely Fantasy, and please subscribe when you get there. I will still be making some independent content, even alongside my Fantasy Now Plus content. I don't know if it's going to be as frequent, but I do UFL picks of the week. If you play on DraftKings and set UFL classic lineups there, I got you covered for a weekly pick.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Evan. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Game Changers. I hope my discussion with Evan provided valuable insights into his experiences in fantasy football and life itself. Join me for the next episode on Wednesday, April 23rd, featuring Kevin Tompkins as my special guest. I would like
Good
to
get.
acknowledge CC, yes, for his contributions behind the scene and the entire TSA team. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is important for our improvement. Follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes and be part of the Sports Affiliation community where everyone is welcome. Until next time, keep challenging the game and making your mark. This is Carla with Evan signing off, wishing you all a pleasant evening. Good night.